All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk Real Life with Miss Nada Manning. I'm your co-host, Coach Vernon Garrison, and boy, do we have a powerful show today. We have a special guest of honor with us that's going to help set the tone for the month of June, and that rhymes, doesn't it? But we're going to have a beautiful, powerful, packed time today. I'm about to let everyone introduce themselves. I just want to exchange some pleasantries from Awesome Radio 107.5 FM, WECU 1570 AM. Indeed. Christian media with the spirit of excellence. How about that? Now, you can listen to us online 24 hours, 7 days a week at WBIS awesomeradio.org. That's WBIS awesomeradio.org. Please like, share, and subscribe if you hit our social media, Awesome Radio, Facebook, Awesome Radio YouTube, GPAC 23, Local Access Channel. Please contact us there if you like. And we hope that you get a lot of nourishment and what should I say, alpha male material today. Without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to turn it over to our host, the host that does the most, Miss Nada Manning.
Well, hello everybody. We are here again going into this second show for the month of June. As I said to you all last time, we'll just giving all the accolades to the men, the fathers to be, the fathers want to be, the uncles, the cousins, all of the male counterparts. We just want to just say and do and encourage all of you men out there to know that we love you. We're going to say and do some encouraging things, hopefully to lift your hearts and your spirits, to know that you are cared for. So, in all of these words, with our guest speaker today, Mr. Ben Johnson, he's going to enlighten all of the male stuff. And me, I'm just going to sit back and listen and soak it all in. So I just thought I'd get my 2 cents in at the head of the show because I won't have too much to say unless co-host decides he want to ask me a question or something like that. But other than that, I am just pleased as I could be to have these two gentlemen on this show as we start again with this month of June, recognizing the menfolk that are so precious to our hearts. That's it. And it's back over to you all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we have none other than Mr. Ben Johnson. How are you today, sir?
Exceptionally well. I thank the two of you for inviting me. I'm sort of shocked and pleasantly pleased that you invited me, but whatever information that I can give, answers to your questions, and also the reason for having such an honor to come down here to the station to share with you the day leading up to Father's Day. I'm not only a father, but father, grandfather, and a great grandfather. So
Uh-huh.
I'm delighted to be part of your show here today. And we've enjoyed always being a part, sharing with this station with Miss Michaela. That's
Uh-huh.
Miss Thickpen. Miss Thickpen, and you got a new name now, married name, Miss McCardell. So I've known her. She says she's my number six daughter. I have five blood daughters, but she says she's number six. So I'm grateful to the two of you making the contact and inviting me over today.
All
Thank,
right.
thank you, sir. Today's show, we're going to explore a bit about some interesting facts. I would say some say facts that you absolutely would not think of. Some would say strange facts. That's what I was about to say, and I got tongue twisted. But I won't say strange, just little known facts about men. And also, Mr. Johnson is going to accompany me in a comparison of the generations that he represents and that he's observed throughout his lifetime, where he has shared his living in the North and the South. And I'm going to let him tell you where he's from and about his historical roots. But there is a pattern, there's a inference that I'm going to draw between men of his day in the 30s and the 40s to men of today. So if you guys listen closely to the subject that we're going to talk about today, is going to be very, very powerful if I can tie the two together. It's going to be amazing. I can do it in theory in my head, but without Mr. Ben Johnson, who just he instigates a thought pattern that I'd like to try to put on display today about how men were living back then, the social construct, the expectations of a man in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'll let him tell you his age. But I feel like I can ask him anything and get a brief window of what was happening in all of those years, mostly in his life. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and start with a couple of interesting facts just to get us started, just to get your brain going. Uh, Globally, men have a life expectancy of 64.52 years as compared to women who have a life expectancy of 68.76 years. Now, that's a global statistic. Maybe you did or did not know that. Let me get a couple of more. The brains of an adult man are about 10% larger in total size than the brains of women. Now, I don't know if God did that for a reason or it just happened through time. He's shaking his head. He got something to say about that.
Well, first thing is, you're not going to get me to answer in the direction that you said. I always said that my wife has more knowledge about life than I do. I give her the credit. And many times I said to people that after 67 years of marriage to my wife, bless her heart, my bride, uh, I said she's my caretaker for all these years because I was always busy with life with working jobs, 2 or 3 jobs, and also the military. So as far as my wife, bless her heart, she ran the household. She made sure everything was right at the household, and we had 7 children. She saw about all the children, and not only we had the 7 children, but then we ended up with 8 grandchildren and 2 great grandchildren. And so my wife did the basic thing, and I give her the credit of raising, the upbringing our children. Our children were born, all but one was born in D.C., so they really city life. Only one was born down here because my wife chose to come down here for the first child to be with her mother and my mother. So our kids basically they were born in D.C. They don't know anything about having to go to an outdoor toilet, and they didn't know how to get there to firewood. They didn't know about turning on the air conditioner. They didn't know anything about it, not to have to bring some wood in to make a fire. And all they didn't know about pumping water. They had everything at their hands and their time of growing up, from birth to grown up time.
Let's set the stage, Mr. Ben Johnson. Your age and where were you born in?
I'm really actually born here in Pitt County. I really, they've taken the name of the place down. They don't have it there no more. I was born in a place called Bruce's. But they took the sign down, and all they got now is saying Falkland. They really like Bruce Falkland. I was born in that area between Bruce and Rock Spring area. And my parents, my father, they were sharecropping people. And that means you shared a farm with some people that owned the farm, and you lived in that house, and you raised what we call the crop. Called the crop. We raised tobacco, corn, cotton, peanuts, stuff like that. But this was back when I was born in the 30s. So we basically just about everybody in that area time, when my birth time, African American, the black, was sharecroppers. Very few blacks owned in the land in the area that I was born and grew up in. Very few. I can only think of in the nearness few area that I live, only one family now owning the land. And when the man died, my understanding that the other man told his wife that, look, you can stay here if you want to, but I own the property now. Your husband owed the money for this land. So no one else I knew of in the area when I grew up had owned any land in that area, Rock Spring, Bruce area.
Let me dive in right there to help my show concept, if you will. You said very few men own land, so this is just a sort of a part of if South or the southern part of North Carolina on down was just a window. How many black men would you say owned land in the 30s and the 40s?
Well, in the area now that I grew up, I don't know if it's just that one family in that area owning the land. And then when the man died, that was it. They didn't own it anymore.
So we weren't able to generate any wealth to pass on to other family members?
It wasn't in the wealth to be passed down because you were sharecropping. And because first thing is, you farmed the land and you got a little money each month during the wintertime to help you grow along. So you didn't get into bills, so you don't really know at the time of housing the crop and selling the basic crops was the tobacco. That was the main crop raising at that time, tobacco and peanuts and corn. And then some people raised cotton. But the main crop was that you had funds from was tobacco. And because you never saw, I never heard my daddy ever say he saw the receipts, anything, how much he owed. All he knows said, this is how much you're going to get. You get, not necessarily you how much you owe, but how much you got left. So you never saw a bill. So you don't know just how much you had been charged or anything.
Right.
But that's how it was at that day and time.
Let's take it back just a little bit. How slavery was abolished in 1865. Do you know anyone that was because you're saying sharecropper, and to me that was another form of slavery. It's the same way of conducting business and taking all your profits in your life.
Well, really, like my father was born in 1903. Now that means his parents was born probably in 1860, something like that, 1850 maybe, because they were already on that farm. And I knew my father's mother and father, and they both passed when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And they had lived at that farm all their life. They lived there. They were born on that farm, and they lived on that farm all their life, and they was buried on that farm. So they never owned anything, so they were never able to get the 40 acres of the mule. Right. So, and that was just where it was at that time, and because they made, they got just enough money to buy. I can remember my daddy when he got the raise in the wintertime, when the crops was all housed and sold, the tobacco and everything. So you're looking at like January, February, you may get a little, they gave you a piece of money to go buy a little thing with, probably. Most times, like most of the men, like my father and mother, they had hogs and they killed a hog, so they had their own meat and they had their own lard, and they had their own vegetables that go along with that. My mother eating canned cabbage and beans and everything. So the only really thing they really had to go buy, maybe some flour and molasses. Basically, the other thing they had there had raised and canned for themselves to take them through the winter. Enough meat to carry you to the next summertime, the fall meat that they had. So that was a way of life for basically people we call sharecroppers.
How do you feel now having to go to the grocery store where nothing is grown, pretty much very little is grown locally? I know there's been some campaigns to go back to getting local. How do you feel now being dependent on a grocery system even though we still have food deserts in certain parts of Eastern North Carolina. How does that compare? You have most of your things on your property, in your home, you created, you made. How do you feel now having to go buy everything?
Well, personally now I feel there's a danger for us that we're not raising our food anymore. It's a danger because you're getting all your food from other countries, basically. And we're building a lot of houses. We got all these other things, mechanical situation going, but we're not raised. You don't hardly see any farmland, and because tobacco really was one of the main crops, but we raised enough corn and peanuts and all that kind of stuff. And because we had gardens and you had the hog, you had even my dad had not only the hog, we had the cow for our milk, we had chickens and we had ducks and all that thing. But you see, you're not doing those things anymore. So to me now, at my stage of the game now, it's a danger for us because the fact that it is, you're not raising any food on the local basis. And if you look at the paper, listen to the news from time to time, you find out a lot of the foods that we're sharing now is contaminated. And then I listen to where you got when you talk about tomatoes and all that things like that, tomatoes and see tomatoes, peaches, all that kind of stuff. We had them on the farm. We had the plums. We had all these things that we now are buying, and most of these things are coming from some other country, and that's a danger based on. Just think about now the stage we're in now with other countries. We said we're not directly in war, but we're serving and working financially in some of these people. And if some of these other countries that we're getting stuff from, if they turn against us, we're in trouble. It's the same thing happened when you have the transporting of the oil from other countries. And I never realized until the war was going on how much oil and everything, how much gas, the oil, the gas, whatever you want to say, call it, it's changed from one thing to another, to change to be manifested as regular gas. I didn't realize how much of that was coming from overseas, like Russia and some of those countries. Now we have oil, and I listened to President Kennedy many years ago, and he said we have enough oil in Texas than we were getting at that time from other countries. But we were not using our own oil. So I don't hear anybody talking about the oil wells in Texas and other places now like we used to have. So and now we're starting to use the oil prices, gas prices going up so high. And I think President had tried one time to sort of put out some. I don't remember President Obama, when the gas price went up so high, what he did, let loose from the gas that we had on hand to force them to lower the prices of gas. Now, a couple of weeks ago, the president talked about doing that, but I haven't heard anything else from that. Basically, maybe we just don't have that much. Who knows?
Right. Who knows? We were talking earlier about life expectancy being 64.52 years of age globally. What was it like in your time and perhaps across the country, the life expectancy of the American African man?
Well, when you look at especially the males now, well, first thing you had no insurance. You had no insurance now.
They had insurance, but y'all didn't have insurance.
We as a people, as a race, and we had no insurance.
Okay.
So that means you didn't have a chance to go to the doctor to be checked out, see how your blood is in, see how you what's happening with your body. So you could have anything, any kind of diseases, but you had no means of finding out what diseases you had. You didn't know anything about your pressure, your blood pressure, and all those things. You don't know.
Wow.
And because I looked at some things from the years gone by, we were thinking, especially men, we were thinking the men was old. We were thinking the men was 70, 80 years old. Come find a lot of these men wasn't even 50 years old.
What?
We didn't realize the fact that it is, I mean, how you gonna know? You don't have any doctors. You're not taking any medication. Now, I can remember many years ago, my dad and my mom, somebody, my grandmother, when you had certain types of sickness, especially colds or something like that, they would go in either on the trees, somewhere in the edges of the wood branches, and get certain types of things that they would take and use to get rid of colds and coughs and things. That's
about
because you
herbs.
had no medication. You had no doctors. You had no money to go to no doctor. And where was a drugstore? I don't know anything about in the drugstores. I didn't. When I first found out about a drugstore, I was a teenager, and there's a drugstore on Evans Street, just off in Dixon Avenue. The only reason I knew about it, go around and get me a cone of ice cream or something. But I didn't know anything about it in the drugstores anywhere until I was a teenager. There were no drugstores around. And back in those, when I grew up, I can only remember one doctor back in those days, and he had a little office and one hospital downtown. Had only one doctor that I can remember was Dr. Smith. He did everything for you. When you got cut or hurt, go to the doctor. That's who took care of you. Now, I'm sure, like myself and many others in my age group or older, there weren't no doctors for delivery. You had no doctor to deliver no babies. You had some midwives that took care of all that stuff. And that's where the records went. Wherever the records went, they kept at that time. So the midwives did those things. So you had no insurance because you had no money to get into it. You didn't have, even if you had some insurance, because you didn't have no automobiles, you had to drive the mule and cart town, wherever the closest town, but like I was in Greenville, Falkland, to a place that had an office. Falkland had office. There was a larger place like a farm area back there, like Falkland and Fountain. They were heavy going places back in those days because it was farmland. But Greenville was the main place that people come to get a lot of things done. But you had no, you had to ride a mule and cart because you had no cars. I can remember in my early days growing up here in Pitt County, Rock Spring, Greenville area. I don't know, but I didn't remember for years. I only knew two black men owned cars for many years. I didn't know but two black men that owned any cars.
Mm-hmm.
Let me dive in.
Now, when I was really young, now 5 or 6 years old, I was about 6, 7, 8 years old.
Let me dive in right there, ladies and gentlemen. My revelation in talking to Mr. Ben Johnson is that our social economical standard of living during his generation prior to was born 1901 to 1924. That was called the greatest generation. After that was he was born in what they call the silent generation, 1925 to 1945. And then the baby boomer generation, which I believe Ms. Nader represents, 1946 to 1964. And then Generation X, which the generation that I represent, I was born in 1968, and we'll leave it at that. There, as far as our status today as Black America, I don't think we've had enough years of solid growth, of solid health care, of solid longevity in a man's life. You're just hearing Mr. Johnson say they were thinking a man was 70, 67 years old or a lot older than what they perceived, and come to find out he was only 50. You just heard we didn't have access to medical care, insurance, if you will. So what I'm saying now, before I get back to Mr. Johnson, is that I believe that men in society now, we have barely scraped the surface of being able to understand who we are and our purpose, and to carry out the goals and the visions that Ben Johnson's family wanted generation wanted to see us do what Miss Nada's generation tried to carry out from the greatest generation, the silent generation. I don't think we've had enough sobriety mentally. I'm going to ask Mr. Ben Johnson a question. At what year do you think, I feel so privileged talking to you, brother. At what year do you think men started, being as Men's Month, okay, started receiving adequate health care? You said there was no doctor, so when you got infections, you had to rely on ways to sterilize things in the home. I think this native was telling me how they boiled, sterilized things with hot water and heat and fire. You talk about herbs. But what year do you think that you guys started receiving enough health care to stay alive long?
Well, I can remember, not some myself now, I can remember having an injury, and I can remember that was in the latter 40s. When I had to go to the doctor with my hand, I cut my hand and transplant, went to the doctor at that time because we didn't have no insurance. There again, they had to refer back to the landowners and tell it, your tenant there, I had to take care of your tenant. We didn't have any insurance, but the doctor took care of my hand, another time with my foot. And because that's in the latter 40s, But then we really got around, I believe, probably, it was into the 50s before we realized that we were able to have it, really, the average person able to have some insurance. You got to look at the fact also, not only that, for health issues, when people looking at the fact of where you have money when a person passed, how you having money to have a funeral. So that was another situation when you talk about insurance.
Wow.
I look back in the days of what they would do, the funeral home, and Coach Funeral Home just had that little building that they would have. It was just a little building where they would do whatever they did. That's what I don't know if they did the embalming and everything, but what they would do, person passed, they have their body would come to be at the house, what we call setting up thing, all night long on a night. And most of them had to be on a Saturday night.
Right.
They would do that all night at the house and then take the remains of the body to the church on Sunday, buried it, because there was a system going on, because you had to work during the week. Well, you didn't have no funeral during the week. You only had a funeral like on Sunday back in those days. You had what they call Saturday evening. They bring the body to the house. I've seen them come to my house, even since I've been living in Greenville. This is in the 50s now. This is the first part of the 50s, because I didn't move into Greenville till then. And that's where they bring the body to the house, and they have the body stays at the house all nights, Saturday night, and then the funeral home person take the body up on that day on Sunday and take it to the church on Sunday and get ready for the funeral. Because you're working 5-6 days a week, so you didn't have no funerals going on during the weekdays. You just had a funeral on Sunday. That's when all the funerals were on Sunday. But you had no, and most people, like my parents, they had an insurance person come by and they had pay a little piece of money in the insurance for the funeral. That's what you're talking about. Want no health insurance or nothing like that. You had maybe $2 or $3 you may put in there per month. So you have maybe $300 or $400 to have a funeral for. That was the only thing being raised back in those early days that I can remember, not the 40s and the first part of the 50s. There was a change after that. I can remember starting 51, so I don't know that way, because all that time I was already 51. I was already living here in Greenville, and my father had a job with the city, and my mother had gotten a job. So that was a change in our life, as far as we're concerned now. Now there was a change in everybody's life now, because I can remember there's some houses here in Greenville, some of those old timey houses. They didn't have restrooms, and they found in the health department they had to put restrooms. What they did was add on the back porch of it, extend it out to like a back porch, and have an indoor toilet. In that place on the back. This is here in Greenville. I didn't know about.
Wow. So what was the social expectation of a man? Let's take a window of time there. Was a man, the pressure of, we got to get a bathroom like we don't have a bathroom. Your wife could be saying, we need a bathroom. Not to mention a car, or not to mention a doctor, but what was the social level and how did men deal with it? Did you say that, oh, we did the woman say we don't have insurance, or give us a window? Because now we're on social media to talk about the bag and what a man should have and what a woman should have or what they both have or have not. But what was that conversation like when you didn't have a bathroom, and did you wear the same clothes 3 or 4 times a week? Because we can change every day of the week.
Because my mother would wash on Monday morning. You take that bath on. You had that tub. You heated that water on the cook stove, and you take that bath on Saturday night.
Oh, you waited all week to take a bath?
Well, I mean, when were you going to take it?
Pretty much.
You waited all week long. You heat that water up on the stove in the kitchen, and you bring it and you take a bath. Fortunately for me, I was an only child. I can imagine all those at 4 or 5, and some people had 10 children, and that means they had to keep heating some water. All of them watching for a while, and then take a bath in it. They would take a bath in it. But I was an only child, so I had that one bath in that one tub. So I brought that in and heated it on the stove, and went into the room, took my bath. This is in the latter 40s now. We didn't have a bathroom until we moved into the city in 1951. That's when I knew about bathrooms. 1951, when we moved in Greenville, that's the first time of a bathroom in my house.
Ho. Why are we living? You got Gen Zers behind Generation Y, which is like 30 years and younger. They don't know anything about that. We just got this stuff, and everybody's expecting us to already have it. Now, they just came out with data about who owns houses now. They're saying women own the most property, especially in the African American community, and they wonder why the men don't own property. You're just saying we just got bathrooms in the 40s and 50s, and we was out working on the farm. Did we even go to school?
Well,
not a whole lot.
Say you working on the farm. You didn't. That's why I say you only had funerals on Sunday, and because you didn't have many preachers, that means you didn't have many pastors. Most pastors back in that day, a preacher, most of them pastored 4 churches. So you pastor 4 churches. So if somebody died in between time, they'd go ahead and bury you. And when the pastor came to the church on that Sunday, we use the word eulogize, and he speaks something about that member. But you see, back in those days, you did not have females as preachers. They were not called preachers. They were called missionaries. And they could not go up in the pulpit and stuff like that. They spoke from the floor for certain times, called a missionary. But you had very few of what we call preachers, pastors. Well, you got to realize they didn't go to school. They couldn't read. I've never been around a lot of preachers. Somebody read some things for them, and they'd be able to read from that, use out what you had. I'm talking about the people. They had not. Now I'm just thinking about. I'm saying to my son, unless you had. And I want to talk about my school, CMS, Charles Montgomery Epps. That was the first Black high school in Greenville. If you wanted to go to high school, you had to go to Suggs and Farmville, or you had to go to Bethel School, or you had to go to Aiden. And in order to go there to school now, you're living in Rock Spring, or you're living somewhere outside, you had to have somebody to stay with to go to high school. So
what?
And most of the people, just think about it. The average family people, that's entirely different where I grew up, my family. The average family had 8, 10 children. Now, my grandmother, my granddaddy, great grandparents, my granddaddy and them, they had 11. But my great granddaddy, they had 21 children. So the fact is, that's what you had.
I know we don't have a 3 hours to do this show, but I want to say this question. I'm discombobulated, y'all. I'm serious. You can ask a young person now, when are you guys going to have children? Oh, well, we're going to wait. We can't afford it right now. Child care is so high. You guys had 10 or 11 children with the economy that you were living under, Jim Crow, and the likeness of all the colors of slavery just in a different form. How could they even think about having 10 children? How do they feed them? What the
Well,
world?
yeah, most of the families, like my wife was a family of 11. She was 11 of their family. And like my mother, that was her family. My mother's family was 11. My father's family, my father had only one sister. His sister had only one daughter, and that one daughter had 3 children. That was a narrow line, but that was an unusual line. But most families had a lot. Now, if you want to live on these farms, that means you need a lot of children to live on these farms. But the first thing they ask you, if you want to rent the farm, how many children do you have?
Okay, great point. Excuse me for cutting you off. I want to take that window and match it until today. We have had the age of, well, if you can't take care of your children, you're going to have to pay child support. We've had that for the last 35, 40 years. I saw you finger, Ms. Nader. I'm gonna take a moment because everybody's gonna say, Vern, you talked the whole time, so thank you for getting my attention. I'm so excited. Child support. You can go to jail now for not taking care of 1 or 2 children. But the man is what I'm talking about. This is men's money. The man. You mean to tell me that back in your day, which was not long ago, I'm serious as hell. I had a pot in the house. You didn't have a bathroom in the house. So you mean to tell me you guys could take care of those children, and now we got more technology. Excuse me for talking so loud, y'all. Now we got more technology, more of everything, to be short about it, and we can take care of one, and we got to go to jail. But a man was actually taking care. One man, head of the household, was taking care of 10 children.
Well, you got to look at the fact there, the upbringing of a family. You really don't have family lives, and because I do, a lot of people don't have family life anymore.
Excuse me. Hold on a minute. I just want to stop.
Go ahead.
And just to say that we are live, just because we are on Facebook, you all, and I just want you all to remember that this is Let's Talk Real Life Show. I am your host, Nada Manning. We are talking with Mr. Ben Johnson. Co-host is Vernon Garrison, and we are just so excited to hear all of this wonderful information. Time is just rolling along, but I just want to interject just for a moment, just to say where we are, and we are on 107.5 FM WECU 1570 AM on this show. So please continue on. I just want to put that out there because we're now almost 40 minutes into the show, and we just need to say that we are glad that we are live. Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Mr. Johnson. We're talking about men taking care of those 10 children. One man. Yeah. Okay. And you were saying there's a difference. In what way?
Their whole system is an upbringing thing. Now, when I lived in D.C., I lived in D.C. 50 years. I had 7 children. Sometimes I worked 2 or 3 jobs. I was in the military also. But my wife never worked a job for an income since we've been married. We've been married 67 years. My thing was the same as my father. When we lived, only time my mother was working a job when I grew up was when we lived on the farm. When we moved in Greenville in 50 or 51, I think 51, she did ordinary things, helping with people, going, taking people shopping, doing a lot of things. And she didn't really work a regular job. outside of being home until I had already graduated from high school and gone away. Then she went working the job. Her job, as far as like my father made, was with the family. I grew up that way, and that's why I planned it with my family when I got married. I wanted to make sure that my wife was there to take care of the children growing up in the city. Uh, I think my oldest daughter uh, received the keys when she came down here because she wanted to go to Pitt Community College. I think they had one building, and then they had a trill or something like that. She's the first child in my family had a key. We only had two keys. My wife had a key and I had a key because one of us was going to always be home.
Wow.
So you didn't need no keys. Now, what happened with that area? And I got to talk about DC. If a man didn't have a job and was looking for a job and didn't have a job, and in order for his wife to draw any income from the city, he could not live at home. They'd have people come around and check the house. They may in there come in at nighttime to see if he's in the house there.
What?
So you could go on and you had a lot of people came from down south, men, see average men my age and younger, my age group younger, they didn't have any previous education.
Right.
So unless they got somewhere to get a labor job,
Right.
they didn't have a job. So in the winter times, construction jobs, some of them, rainy weather and all that, they didn't have no job. So it was hard for black men in the early years that did not have an education, have any education, get a job, because they were laborers, you see.
Right.
And that's where it was. Fortunate, moving toward my age group, there's a whole different thought to change. By the time I got up to the 1956 and on, it became a change. Now, it wasn't a total, and we're still not a total. You got a lot of things that's really not going in the way that it could go, should go. But like I said, in my children, my grandsons, you need to make sure you be a part of what's happening. You need to get yourself registered. You need to vote. You need to know what the government is all about. Mm-hmm. You need to know what you should be getting yourself. And you need to go to school and get an education. So when you apply for a job, you be able to have a job and be able to communicate with the English language. Now, you may take some other language, but you need to know your language for English.
Amen.
That's the first thing you need to know. Take some other, but know English. And that's what I try to say to my grandchildren. I have 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren.
Wonderful. I got a social question here because we're doing this social media now, and a lot of people are talking about the character of a man. And so before we run out of time, I wanted to share this. And I said, maybe I read this earlier. Men are likely to lie 6 times a day, which is twice as often as women. Men with shaved heads are perceived as an inch taller and 13% stronger than men with hair. But the one I wanted to focus on is men that are likely to lie 6 times a day, which is twice as often as women. What was the character of a man? Now we have this campaign. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. People are out with black men. Most of our women just down us in the media, just talk about all our dirty laundry. We'll just, in other races, they don't do that. You don't hear women talk about my white husband is this and he's that and he won't take care of my children. Whatever it is they got going on, they keep it in the family. But we have done a lot of damage socially in the media for the black man, in crime, the news, self-hate. What was the character of a man when you were coming up? Was he like, this is my house? Was I representing moral character? Was he mostly foolish? Was he protector of a family? Was he a king? What was the character in the windows that you can describe up until now?
Well, I have to really deal with basically like my father. My father's always been my superstar.
Okay.
because he managed a home. He made sure that we had my mother and me. We had everything that we needed to operate with, even to the time we moved into Greenville in 50, 51, something like that. He started life for my mother and me. And I can remember when I came back here, my father had passed. My father was working up he worked the day just before he was still working the job, the day before he died.
What?
He was still working. He died. He was 73 years old.
And he was still working.
He still working. He had retired from the Greenville utility, but he was still working the job. Service station, pumping people gas and changing tires, different things. And my mother has had a job working at Eventide. So she came home and he had not got up. She said, my dad was named Premier. Premier, you ain't getting up, go to work. She said, I'll get up in 2 minutes, go to work. And she had to drive somebody. The neighbors always, people around here, they have no cars, but we had a car. And so my mother would drive them and she drove the people down. And when she come back, my dad had never got out of the bed. And hospital, he was, that's the mannerism he was. He always had a job. He always go fix it, take care of his roof. He had a big garden in the backyard. He had peaches and plums and everything in the backyard. And he raised their collards and cabbage and everything in the yard. He was always raising stuff. But you see, what has happened now with the average men, we have a change of a gimme. I think I'm entitled. And you bore me and I'm entitled for you to support me. And we didn't come up that way. My father supported us because he felt that was his job. And because I worked the job, I worked part-time jobs and stuff, doing things in the neighborhood area, cutting grass and drove the school bus and all that kind of thing. So I always had it because he taught me, and I taught my son, and you know my son Roger, the same way in DC. I taught him, look, Roger, you got to work if you're going to have something. You got to work. You got to work, and you got to get an education.
So does this sound like to me? Excuse me for interrupting because we got about 3 minutes. You're saying the gimme, the entitlement. So that started with the men of your age, or was it a time frame? Was it in the 50s or 60s? Because I got to go do my research because we're going to talk more. But when did this entitlement of I want to be taken care of start?
I'm looking at the people when I'm looking at the areas when you're talking about in the latter 80s, 90s, or like that.
Okay, yes.
Not with the age earlier than that, because
right.
Even though the men came to DC that were in DC, they looked for jobs. You didn't see them on the corner, begging, like you see along out here. You can look up street here, Arlington Boulevard. You may see sometimes 2 or 3 people out there on the corner, one on each corner with a cup. And I'm talking about young people, male and female.
Yeah.
But you didn't in the early days. Wasn't nobody standing on the corner in DC asking for no money.
Nope.
No.
What? Oh my God, we got so much to take care. We got so much to talk about. So y'all didn't have panhandlers on the corner in the 50s.
No,
they didn't have no pan. What was pan? We didn't. We worked. People worked.
That's right.
I can remember myself. I can remember working 14 hours a day job.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the thing to do. I had to take care of my wife and my children, and had 7 children. Everybody went to college. Everybody.
Something happened, guys. I got to turn it over to Ms. Nate. But something happens, and we got to figure out when. I know that we have not had enough time as black men to do the job that you was doing.
Let's say this about a lot of our generation that came after me.
Yes, sir.
Like not my children, but the children like my children and some of theirs.
Okay.
First thing is, I hear people, women, children, husbands. I don't want my children to have to fare like I fared. My question was asking them, were you in jail?
Uh-oh.
Did you go to jail?
Ah.
You didn't want to feel like me, but did you go to jail? Not, they doing everything hustling. They going to jail. Did you go to
Right.
jail?
Amen.
Oh my God. We gotta talk, Miss Nada. I don't know how we'll arrange this. You already know what I'm thinking about, but thank you, Mr. Johnson. We're gonna carry on somehow, Miss Nada.
Yeah, we still have a couple of minutes. I just want to say, Mr. Johnson, I can basically relate to everything that you have said because those were my parents' times. And
Yeah.
by me being the oldest of 6, I remember those things that you mentioned about the bathroom and the last thing that you just said about the panhandle. No, I agree with everything that you said. No, we didn't even know what that word meant. Never heard of panhandling. What is that? But no, people worked. And because of the time that we have left, I do want to say we welcome you, and we do hope that you will come back again because we want to get some more from you. I love to hear the words of wisdom from older people. So I just want to say, please do consider coming back with us here on the show as we move forward, and hopefully sometime this month before June is over. We would love for you to come back and carry on with us and give us some knowledge. I mean, it's just a pleasure. So in light of all of that, um, just know that we love you for coming and we appreciate you so very much for coming in and hold some of that knowledge. Don't forget too much now so you can come back and share some more with us. All right. But at this time, I believe we have maybe about a minute and a half left. So I want to say we're going to pray and consider it very seriously to join us again. Maybe you and Coach can work something out and keep me posted on when you can come back and we can pre-record some more. But right now we want to pray. Father God, thank you so very much for this time that we have had with our guest. It's such a pleasure to listen to him, Lord, and we just give you praise and honor for allowing him to set aside some time to come and share with us. All of you listeners out there, Lord, I just pray that you would touch those hearts and minds who have heard some of these encouraging words to know that these men are critical, that it's not over, that life is still good. They just have to listen to some of the old folks talk and not say, oh, they don't do that anymore. But Lord, you know all about it. You know better than we do how things were then, how they are now, and how they're going to be in the future. So we lift you up, Lord, as we continue to talk on this show about real life issues. We give you praise and honor and thank you again for allowing us and giving us the breath and the will to do this for you, Lord, because it is all about you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Awesome Radio Christian Media with the spirit of excellence. Once again, listen to us online 24/7, awesomeradio.org, 107.5 WECU, 1570 AM. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.